Bad guy, not bad boy.
I wasn't signing a murder. I said, yo, man, you really, bro, to your credit, man, you really the chosen one, man. Me and Sin was saying you the chosen one, man. Loon went to jail. Stop my nigga Loon. Biggie dead. Craig Mack dead. G Dep went to jail. Damn, murder, you got the instincts.
Bruce Leroy.
Yeah. Damn, the lineup of jail and death over there. You got.
Fire the moment the Diddy documentary dropped, the internet exploded, but what nobody expected was Mase and Camron going full nuclear. We're talking uncensored, unfiltered, and absolutely unforgiving. These two legends didn't just throw shade, they took a blowtorch to every corner of Diddy's image, and they didn't miss a single target. From wild accusations to long-buried betrayals, to the behind-the-scenes trauma they say the public never saw, Mase and Camron held nothing back, and the savage way they did it left fans gasping, bloggers scrambling, and insiders scrambling to control the fallout. Microphone Mase calling out, the system that protects monsters. Microphone Camron mocking, Diddy's bad boy legacy like it's a horror movie. They said what everyone was thinking, but were too afraid to say. And what they revealed, backhand index pointing right secret contracts. Backhand index pointing right manipulated careers. Backhand index pointing right and a culture of silence that's only now starting to break. This wasn't just commentary. It was a reckoning. But here's the wildest part. Mase and Camron say the documentary only scratched the surface, and the real truth? They lived it, they survived it, and they're done protecting anyone. This is the story of the most savage takedown in hip-hop media history, and trust us, by the time we hit the final twist, you'll never look at Diddy or the industry the same again. So sit tight because what comes next, it's raw, real, and radioactive. Before Mase and Camron ever picked up a mic to torch Diddy's name on air, this story was already decades in the making. This wasn't just commentary. This was a reckoning that had been simmering since the 90s, finally exploding in real time as the Diddy documentary made headlines across the globe. Let's rewind to the beginning, back when the bad boy era was at its peak. Back when flashy suits, all-white parties, and hypnotic hooks ruled the charts. Back when Sean Diddy Combs could do no wrong in the public eye. But behind the platinum plaques, behind the shiny Versace shades, and behind the larger-than-life persona, there were whispers. Whispers of broken contracts. Whispers of stolen publishing rights. Whispers of manipulation, betrayal, and deep-seated industry exploitation. And at the heart of those whispers, two names kept circling the storm, Mase and Camron. Mase, the preacher-turned-rapper-turned-activist, had once been the golden boy of Bad Boy Records. His smile was infectious, his flow smooth as silk, and his verses became anthems for an entire generation. But just as quickly as he rose, he vanished, left the game. No warning, no goodbye. People speculated, some said he found God, some said he was burnt out, some said he just wasn't built for the industry's pressure. But the real truth was way darker. Because years later, Mase would drop bombshell after bombshell, revealing that his departure wasn't spiritual, it was survival. He claimed Diddy never paid him what he was owed. That he watched people around him crash and burn, financially, emotionally, even spiritually. He accused Diddy of creating a culture of control, of using mentorship as manipulation. He bought my publishing for $20,000. I was a kid. I didn't know better. And when I tried to buy it back for $2 million, he said no. That statement alone was enough to shock fans. But Mase didn't stop there. He started speaking on the emotional damage, how artists were pitted against each other, how loyalty was punished, and how Diddy used his power to erase people the moment they questioned him. Now enter Camron. Cam had his own journey. A Harlem icon, a dipset general, a man who never bit his tongue. And his connection to Mase wasn't just industry, they were friends. Real ones from the block. Before the chains, the champagne, and the deals. But their paths diverged. Camron stayed independent, made his own lane, and never needed Diddy to shine. Still, he watched. Watched what happened to Mase. Watched what happened to others. And when that bombshell Diddy documentary aired, finally pulling back the veil on decades of scandal, Camron and Mase had seen enough. They took to their show, It Is What It Is, and what followed wasn't just a reaction video, it was a verbal demolition of everything Diddy ever stood for. They didn't mince words, they didn't hold back, and they didn't flinch. Camron opened the episode with a face so cold, fans said he looked like he was going to war. Y'all seeing it now like it's brand new. We been new. You think this just started? We've been screaming into the wind while y'all was doing the Harlem Shake. Mase, in his usual calm but deadly tone, dropped a bomb on minute 5. This documentary, it's the first time the world's catching up to what we lived through. But don't get it twisted, this ain't the whole story. Then came the flashbacks, the stories that never made the headlines, the meetings in glass towers, the broken promises, the way, according to them, Diddy built his empire on the backs of broken boys who just wanted to shine. We were kids, kids with dreams, and dreams is the easiest thing to weaponize in this game, Mase said. They described the studio as a place of psychological warfare, where beats were fire but the contracts were flames, where artists were rewarded for loyalty until that loyalty turned into questions. Once you start asking about ownership, royalties, legacy, that's when they start making you feel crazy. That's when you become a problem, Cam added. And let's be clear, this isn't just sour grapes. This isn't washed-up artists crying foul. Mase and Camron are respected voices, still pulling millions of views, still controlling conversations. And their takedown of Diddy felt like a public trial, because in the wake of recent allegations, lawsuits, and exposés tied to Diddy, from accusations of abuse to deeper federal investigations, the industry is on edge. Suddenly, the flashy mogul is looking more like a villain in his own origin story. And the artists who once whispered in corners, they're screaming into the spotlight. Camron dropped one of the most vicious lines mid-episode, and fans are still quoting it all over Twitter. "That bad boy logo ain't no baby, it's a body bag." Fire boom, fire the chat froze. The room went silent because that wasn't just a punchline. It was an accusation, but what came next took things to a whole other level. Before the world ever caught wind of the Diddy documentary, before a single frame rolled or a single secret was exposed, Mase and Camron were already living the truth behind the scenes. This wasn't just a sudden explosion of drama. This was a slow-burning fire that had been smoldering for decades. And when that camera lens finally turned toward the shadows of bad boy history, it wasn't shedding new light, it was only confirming what Mase and Cam had been warning about for years. Back in the 90s, the rise of bad boy records was like watching a new empire form overnight. It was flashy, it was fast, and it felt unstoppable. The music, iconic. The parties, legendary. The power, untouchable. Diddy wasn't just a label exec, he was a kingmaker. He could take an unknown kid from Harlem and turn him into a household name in a matter of months. And that's exactly what he did with Mase. Mase was the golden child. His debut album went multi-platinum. His verses were smooth, catchy, and full of swagger. He had the charm, the smile, the presence. But what fans didn't see was the price behind the shine. Mase wasn't just climbing a ladder, he was being pulled into a machine. A machine that knew how to polish stars, but also how to break them when they stepped out of line. Camron watched it all from the sidelines at first. He and Mase went way back, Harlem roots, real history. They weren't just industry peers, they were brothers in hustle. Cam saw Mase go from high school halls to Hollywood penthouses, but he also saw the cost. The late-night phone calls, the sudden disappearances, the changes in Mase's energy. Something was wrong even back then. And then Mase vanished. One day, he was everywhere on every feature in every video touring the world. And then, just like that, he walked away. No warning, no farewell, just a silent retreat into the shadows. At the time, the media painted it as a spiritual awakening. Mase found God, they said. He's leaving to pursue the ministry. And while that may have been partially true, the deeper truth was buried beneath layers of fear, betrayal, and silence. Years later, when Mase resurfaced, the pieces started coming together. He wasn't just leaving for God, he was escaping something dark, something manipulative. He began revealing bits of the truth in interviews, social media posts, and cryptic verses. The publishing contracts he signed at 19. The ownership of his music that slipped through his fingers. The lies he was fed, the loyalty he gave, and the pain he carried. One particular statement sent shockwaves through the industry. "He bought my publishing for $20,000. I didn't know better, I was just a kid. Then I tried to buy it back for $2 million and he said no." That wasn't business. That was a betrayal wrapped in legal paperwork. Mase had become a prisoner of his own legacy. His words, his art, his soul, owned by someone who smiled in his face while taking it all. Camron, always known for his boldness and zero-filter honesty, couldn't stay silent any longer either. He started dropping subtle jabs in his music. Interviews got a little colder when Diddy's name came up. And then, once he teamed up with Mase for their show, It Is What It Is, everything changed. The show wasn't just entertainment, it became a platform, a megaphone, a place where two Harlem kings could speak freely without corporate filters or industry consequences. And when the Diddy documentary hit, they knew it was time to set the record straight, not with gossip, not with hearsay, but with their lived experience, raw, uncensored, and unfiltered. Cam opened the segment with an ice-cold delivery, eyes piercing the camera like he was speaking directly to Diddy himself. "Y'all finally seeing it now? This ain't nothing new to us. This been the story. We just ain't have the cameras back then." Mase leaned in calm but sharp. the way only someone who's been through the fire can speak. When you've seen what we've seen, when you've survived it, you don't need a documentary. Your scars are the proof. They went on to describe the emotional and psychological warfare that came with being under the bad boy umbrella. The way success was dangled like a carrot, only to be yanked away the moment you stepped out of line. How fame was used to trap them, not free them. And they didn't just speak for themselves, they spoke for the ones who couldn't. The fallen, the forgotten, the artists who never got their flowers, the ones who ended up broke, broken, or buried, while the empire they helped build continued to rise. What started as a reaction to a documentary quickly transformed into something much bigger. It was a confession, a testimony, a warning. Camron said it best, "They say the truth will set you free, but in this business, the truth gets you blackballed." And yet here they were, speaking it anyway. But just when it felt like they'd said it all, just when you thought the story couldn't go any deeper, they dropped the first real twist. Before the world ever caught wind of the Diddy documentary, before a single frame rolled or a single secret was exposed, Mase and Camron were already living the truth behind the scenes. This wasn't just a sudden explosion of drama. This was a slow-burning fire that had been smoldering for decades. And when that camera lens finally turned toward the shadows of bad boy history, it wasn't shedding new light, it was only confirming what Mase and Cam had been warning about for years. Back in the 90s, the rise of bad boy records was like watching a new empire form overnight. It was flashy, it was fast, and it felt unstoppable. The music, iconic. The parties, legendary. The power, untouchable. Diddy wasn't just a label exec, he was a kingmaker. He could take an unknown kid from Harlem and turn him into a household name in a matter of months. And that's exactly what he did with Mase. Mase was the golden child. His debut album went multi-platinum. His verses were smooth, catchy, and full of swagger. He had the charm, the smile, the presence, but what fans didn't see was the price behind the shine. Mase wasn't just climbing a ladder, he was being pulled into a machine that knew how to polish stars but also how to break them when they stepped out of line. Camron watched it all from the sidelines at first. He and Mase went way back, Harlem roots, real history. They weren't just industry peers, they were brothers in hustle. Cam saw Mase go from high school halls to Hollywood penthouses, but he also saw the cost. The late-night phone calls, the sudden disappearances, the changes in Mase's energy. Something was wrong even back then. And then Mase vanished. One day he was everywhere on every feature in every video touring the world. And then just like that he walked away. No warning, no farewell, just a silent retreat into the shadows. At the time the media painted it as a spiritual awakening. Mase found God, they said. He's leaving to pursue the ministry. And while that may have been partially true, the deeper truth was buried beneath layers of fear, betrayal, and silence. Years later, when Mase resurfaced, the pieces started coming together. He wasn't just leaving for God, he was escaping something dark, something manipulative. He began revealing bits of the truth in interviews, social media posts, and cryptic verses. The publishing contracts he signed at 19. The ownership of his music that slipped through his fingers. The lies he was fed, the loyalty he gave, and the pain he carried. One particular statement sent shockwaves through the industry. "He bought my publishing for $20,000. I didn't know better, I was just a kid. Then I tried to buy it back for $2 million and he said no." That wasn't business. That was a betrayal wrapped in legal paperwork. Mase had become a prisoner of his own legacy. His words, his art, his soul, owned by someone who smiled in his face while taking it all. Camron, always known for his boldness and zero-filter honesty, couldn't stay silent any longer either. He started dropping subtle jabs in his music. Interviews got a little colder when Diddy's name came up. And then, once he teamed up with Mase for their show, It Is What It Is, everything changed. The show wasn't just entertainment, it became a platform, a megaphone, a place where two Harlem kings could speak freely without corporate filters or industry consequences. And when the Diddy documentary hit, they knew it was time to set the record straight, not with gossip, not with hearsay, but with their lived experience, raw, uncensored, and unfiltered. Cam opened the segment with an ice-cold delivery, eyes piercing the camera like he was speaking directly to Diddy himself. "Y'all finally seeing it now? This ain't nothing new to us. This been the story. We just ain't have the cameras back then." Mase leaned in, calm but sharp, the way only someone who's been through the fire can speak. "When you've seen what we've seen, when you've survived it, you don't need a documentary. Your scars are the proof." They went on to describe the emotional and psychological warfare that came with being under the bad boy umbrella. The way success was dangled like a carrot, only to be yanked away the moment you stepped out of line. How fame was used to trap them, not free them. And they didn't just speak for themselves, they spoke for the ones who couldn't. The fallen, the forgotten, the artists who never got their flowers, the ones who ended up broke, broken, or buried, while the empire they helped build continued to rise. What started as a reaction to a documentary quickly transformed into something much bigger. It was a confession, a testimony, a warning. Camron said it best: "They say the truth will set you free, but in this business, the truth gets you blackballed." And yet here they were, speaking it anyway. But just when it felt like they'd said it all, just when you thought the story couldn't go any deeper, they dropped the first real twist. What began as a powerful testimony of survival quickly exploded into an all-out exposé. Because just when fans thought Mase and Camron were simply telling their story, they dropped receipts that the industry never expected. The truth: Diddy wasn't just a manipulative label exec. He was the architect of a much darker empire, one built on fear, silence, and control. As the documentary painted Diddy as a complex figure with both brilliance and flaws, Mase and Cam took things further. They didn't just call him out, they dismantled him brick by brick, move by move. Mase looked straight into the camera and said it with a deadpan face: "It wasn't just me. There were others, ghost contracts, deals you never heard about. Artists who never got the chance to speak." He leaned back, letting the weight of his words settle. Camron cut in, voice laced with venom: "Yo, we not gone sit here and act like we ain't know what really went down behind them studio doors." And then, the bombshell. According to Mase and Cam's insider sources, several contracts were buried deep in Bad Boy's publishing office. These weren't the standard artist agreements. These were silencing tools, clauses that waived royalties for life, gag orders disguised as loyalty bonuses, development deals that required artists to sign over full creative control before they even stepped into a studio. One particular case hit home for Cam, an anonymous Harlem artist named Blitz. According to Cam, Blitz had bars like Nuz, a stage presence like DMX, and a voice that could move crowds. Diddy signed him in '98. Told the hood he was next, but suddenly no album, no features, no promo, gone just like that. Cam revealed what Blitz told him years later: "They locked me in for 7 albums, 7, and never planned to drop one. Said I was too street, too real. So they shelved me, bruh, forever, couldn't sign with nobody else, couldn't drop nothing." This wasn't just a bad deal, this was career assassination. And according to Cam, Blitz was just one of dozens. Mase took it a step further, pulling out printed screenshots of emails, supposedly leaked from a former Bad Boy assistant, showing internal memos about freezing assets and deprioritizing non-core talent. The language was cold, clinical, stripped of humanity. It was less about music and more about control. The audience watching It Is What It Is live couldn't believe it. Chat was going wild. Fire, yo, what is this? A whole prison system disguised as a record label. Fire, they really out here exposing the dark web of the music industry. Fire, I need this in a documentary of its own. But the biggest twist wasn't just about old contracts or buried artists. It was about the current industry players who allegedly knew and stayed silent. Cam didn't hold back. "You think this just Diddy? Nah, y'all heroes was in them rooms too. Executives, artists, even politicians. They saw this and said nothing." He dropped names, not directly, but enough hints to make the internet light up like wildfire. When a certain mogul with $1 billion sneaker line throws Rock Nation brunches, ask him what he knew. When a certain actress-turned-mogul smiles in photos with Diddy at the Met Gala, ask her what she heard backstage. Mase looked visibly uncomfortable at one point, but Cam, he was locked in because this wasn't just about music anymore. This was about the structure, the system, and then he did the unthinkable. Camron pulled up a never-before-heard voicemail. It was crackly, faint, but clear enough. "Yo, Cam. It's me, don't say my name. They watching, I need out. He's got my publishing, my masters, everything. I'm broke and I can't even release my own music." The voice was unmistakable to true fans, an early 2000s R&B star who vanished at the peak of his fame. One who had a platinum debut, a rumored beef with Diddy, and then disappeared. Cam let the silence linger. "That man was crying on the phone, crying. And y'all still out here calling Diddy a visionary?" Mase added. "Ain't nobody visionary if they building empires off the bones of their own people." This section of the show went viral instantly. Clips were reposted on Twitter, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and even Instagram Reels with captions like, "Mase and Cam just burned the entire industry down fire. Diddy's worst nightmare is here." The truth: the documentary was too scared to tell. People weren't just reacting, they were reevaluating. Old clips of Diddy joking with artists suddenly seemed sinister. Videos of former Bad Boy artists crying in interviews hit different. Even fans of the documentary began calling it out, speaking, they sugar-coated it. "This ain't no redemption arc, this was a cover UP." Speaking, Mase and Cam are giving us the real uncut version. And just when the smoke seemed to settle, Mase dropped his final twist of the night. You know who really tried to stop the doc from airing? The hosts leaned in. Two major platforms pulled out before it even aired because they got calls from friends in high places. One of them even offered a 7-figure payout just to bury it. Y'all thought y'all were watching a documentary. Nah, you watching the version they allowed you to see. That line alone sent shockwaves through every social media platform. People were demanding the raw cut. Fans started petitioning for a second, uncensored documentary. Journalists began reaching out to former Bad Boy staffers. Podcasts were spinning off with emergency panels. And late-night hosts, they couldn't get enough of it. Mase and Camron didn't just tell their story. They kicked the doors wide open on an entire system. But there was one final shocker. A leaked DM appeared on Twitter from an anonymous user who claimed to be a former executive at a rival label. It said, "If they think Diddy was the only one doing this, they're not ready for what's next. He was just the face. The rot runs deep." And just like that, the story grew bigger than anyone imagined. The Bad Boy house of cards was collapsing. But this wasn't just about Diddy anymore. This was a reckoning, and Mase and Camron, they weren't done. They ended their segment with this chilling message. "We told y'all part 1. The next drop, gonna end careers." Just when the public thought Mase and Camron had already peeled back every dirty layer of the music industry's darkest secrets, they turned up the heat to an inferno. What came next wasn't just gossip. It wasn't rumors. It was a full-blown unraveling of a system built on silence, manipulation, and unchecked power. Because when you expose one villain, you risk unveiling the entire syndicate. The moment their last episode aired, the industry went into defense mode. Phones started ringing. PR teams began drafting emergency statements. Executives who hadn't spoken publicly in years were suddenly available for interviews. And in the middle of this chaos, Mase and Cam dropped another bombshell. This time, they weren't just speaking for themselves. They were speaking for the silenced. It started with an anonymous voice memo, played live on their show. The speaker's voice was disguised, shaky but defiant. You could feel the fear underneath every word. "I was 16. They told me I had star quality. I signed the papers. I thought it was my dream, but it became a nightmare. They locked me in a contract I couldn't escape. I never saw a dollar, I never released a single, and when I asked questions, I was blackballed." Mace's eyes burned with restrained fury. That was someone's daughter, a kid. They promised her the world and then buried her alive in silence. The revelation shook fans to their core. People started combing through old rosters, archived footage, studio credits, trying to figure out who the anonymous voice belonged to. But the horror didn't stop there. Camron leaned into the mic and dropped the next twist with a sinister calm. "You remember that reality show, the one where artists competed for a record deal? Yeah, that was scripted. The winner already had a deal before the cameras started rolling. The audience watching live couldn't believe it, but Cam wasn't done. Want to know what else? Half the judges were getting paid to reject certain artists. You didn't lose because you weren't talented. You lost because you didn't play ball, because you didn't sign your soul away." Then Mase dropped a name, a major TV host, a respected mogul, a face everyone trusted. He knew. He was in the meetings, he helped negotiate those contracts. It felt like the room cracked in half. Social media exploded. Fans who once worshipped these icons were now questioning everything. Old interviews resurfaced. TikToks analyzed body language. YouTubers made hour-long breakdowns. Suddenly, the conversation had shifted. This wasn't just about Diddy anymore. This was about a culture of exploitation hiding in plain sight. Then came the footage. Mase and Cam aired a behind-the-scenes clip from a 2003 awards show. The video had never been made public until now. It showed a young female artist, no older than 20, being pulled aside by two executives. The audio was muffled, but one line came through clear as day. "You wanna be famous or forgotten." That one sentence lit the internet on fire. And just when it seemed like the wave had reached its peak, Cam dropped his final grenade. This ain't even the half of it. There's an entire email thread between label execs, producers, and PR firms coordinating takedowns. You wonder why your favorite artist suddenly vanished? It wasn't drugs. It wasn't bad behavior. It was planned, strategic, executed. He pulled out printed screenshots, redacted names, leaked headers, code names, blacklists, artist reprioritization protocols. If you spoke up, if you asked for your money, you got labeled difficult and your career was over. Mase jumped in with a chilling conclusion. This industry don't need cancel culture, it created it. Before social media ever existed, they had a system. If you didn't bow down, they erased you. Viewers watching in real time were left stunned. The comments section flooded. "Right, this is deeper than Diddy. This is an entire blueprint of control. Right, I feel sick. All those years I blamed the artists. They were victims. Right, who else is involved? How high does this go?" Mase and Cam ended the episode in silence, No jokes, no banter, just a black screen with 4 chilling words. You've only seen part 1. The internet was already out for blood. Hashtags like number industry exposed, number cancel the gatekeepers, and number who was the voice trended for 72 hours straight. More alleged victims started speaking up in cryptic tweets and IG posts. Some confirmed the tactics. Some hinted they were scared. Others said they were preparing to go on record, with Mase and Cam leading the charge. It wasn't just about telling the truth anymore. It was about dismantling an entire empire built on stolen voices. And just when you thought they'd said it all, Mase dropped the teaser for the next episode. The next one's not about the labels, it's about the celebrities who knew, the ones who stayed silent, the ones who laughed while the abuse happened in the next room. Y'all ready? The countdown had begun. The fallout hit like a tidal wave. Within hours of Mase and Camron's shocking expose airing, it wasn't just the hip-hop world buzzing. It was the entire entertainment industry spinning in chaos. From New York to LA, the silence was broken, and the whispers turned into roars. Celebrities were scrambling, executives were sweating, and fans, they were mobilizing. Every platform, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, transformed into a battlefield. Everyone had an opinion and nobody was holding back. One clip in particular from the "It Is What It Is" broadcast went viral instantly. Mase staring directly into the camera and saying, "You want to know how deep it goes? Look at the charts. Look at the artists who disappeared after speaking up. They didn't fade, they were erased." That one line turned into a war cry. Number erased by the industry started trending in less than 2 hours. Thousands of fans posted screenshots of artists who had seemingly vanished overnight over the past 2 decades, especially women, queer artists, and anyone who refused to play the game. Twitter exploded. One user wrote, "I knew something was off when Tweet vanished after her debut. I knew it. Mase and Cam just confirmed what we all felt for years." Another added, "We all laughed when Lauryn Hill stopped showing up. Maybe it wasn't just mental health. Maybe the machine broke her." A former assistant for a major label anonymously posted a Twitter thread that gained 2.3 million likes in 24 hours. She said she once witnessed an exec tell a new artist, "We'll shelve you so deep, your own mama won't remember you make music." The comments? Brutal. But it wasn't just fans talking. Celebrities began picking sides. Some tried to stay neutral, but that silence only made them look guilty. Others spoke up and their words carried weight. J. Cole reposted a clip of Mase and Cam with the caption, "Truth don't expire." Respect to the ones brave enough to speak it. Cardi B, known for never biting her tongue, jumped on IG Live and said, "These old heads ain't lying, I've seen it. I was lucky to have my own wave, but not everyone gets out clean. Some of these girls, they had to do some real grimy SHT just to get one single out." But then came the shocker. Usher, who had long been linked to the same inner circle as the people being exposed, posted a cryptic tweet. "Some of us tried to warn y'all, but they shut us down before we could speak." That tweet set the internet on fire. People started pulling up old interviews, cryptic song lyrics, award show speeches. Everything was now being read as code, as warning signs we all missed. Then a major producer, a Grammy winner known for working with the biggest stars, posted a 3-minute TikTok where he flat out said, "There are contracts in this business that are designed to trap artists like prey. Mase and Cam are speaking facts. I've seen it. I've HELPED enforce it. I'm ashamed." The comment section was a flood. Right, name names or you're just another coward. Right, we need more insiders to come clean. Right, this ain't just hip-hop, this is systemic. But not everyone was happy. Joe Budden, who's been through his own label war, fired back on his podcast. "Look, I'm not saying they're wrong, but you gotta be careful when you start naming names. You open the floodgates, you better be ready for what comes." Then, on the same day, a celebrity publicist leaked a memo that had been circulating behind the scenes. The memo, marked Urgent Damage Control Strategy, laid out talking points for industry insiders. It warned of a targeted smear campaign and urged executives to reaffirm the positive legacy of key figures. Fans weren't having it. TikTok stitched the memo with videos of artists crying on camera, recounting their horror stories. The message was clear: you can't spin this, we see you now. Blogs ran with headlines like, "Industry in panic after Mase and Cam drop nuclear truth bomb, the silence is deafening." Why some celebs won't speak out. Whistleblowers rise as hip-hop skeletons spill out. And then came the fan movements. Protest hashtags surged. Number free the artists, number expose the labels, number fire the gatekeepers. A petition titled "Launch Federal Investigation into Record Label Abuses" hit 500,000 signatures in 3 days. It wasn't just drama anymore. People wanted justice. Even politicians began weighing in. One senator tweeted, If even half of what Mase and Camron said is true, then the entire music industry needs to be held accountable. These are lives we're talking about. Meanwhile, Diddy's camp went completely silent. No statements, no denials, no lawsuits, yet that silence ironically spoke louder than any response ever could. And while the industry scrambled, Mase and Cam were already teasing part 2. The caption, "Next episode, the celebrities who knew and said nothing." That was enough to send everyone into a frenzy again. And yet in all the noise, one voice stood out, the anonymous voice from the first episode. They posted a message from a throwaway account. "I'm not the only one, there's more. They're just scared, but we're watching. And this time, we're not going to be silenced." The war had just begun, just when it felt like the dust might settle. When the world had barely processed the seismic wave Mase and Camron sent through the music industry, they struck again. But this time the target wasn't a label. It wasn't a faceless executive. It was someone fans worshipped, a name untouchable. Until now, the teaser said it all, the ones who watched it happen and did nothing. Viewers expected another indirect jab. Maybe another vague silhouette, another distorted voice. But what they got was a face, a full face, no blur, no voice changer. A former platinum-selling artist who hadn't been seen in over a decade, and what she said. It burned the entire internet to the ground. Her name? We'll call her Monique James, but you'd know her by her stage name, the one that sat on Billboard charts for 36 weeks in 2007, the one who toured with A-listers, won awards, and then suddenly disappeared. She looked tired, shaky, but ready. And then she said this, "I signed to a label that promised me everything." Within months, I realized they didn't care about music. They cared about obedience. And when I said no, when I refused their private meetings and VIP invites, my name was blacklisted overnight. She took a breath. But the worst part wasn't them. It was the artists I looked up to, who watched it happen, who told me to be quiet if I ever wanted a future, who smiled in public and hid monsters behind closed doors. The world gasped. Then came the photos. Monique showed emails, screenshots, tour itineraries with private request codes, and then texts, names redacted, except for one. A screenshot of a message from a major male pop star everyone thought was squeaky clean. His text read, "You don't want to make this ugly, just smile, stay quiet, and collect your check." The name, uncensored. He was trending globally within minutes. The comments exploded, "Right, not HIM? No, no. No, right, everything I thought I knew is a lie. Right, I'm sick. I grew up idolizing this man." As the clip went viral, Mase and Camron sat quietly, letting the world burn in real time. But they weren't finished. Cam leaned in and dropped one more grenade. "Remember those missing artists? The ones that vanished out of nowhere. Some of them didn't just leave. Some of them were paid to disappear. Or worse, were threatened." The air in the studio changed. And now, some of them are ready to come back. But this time, they ain't coming to make music. They're coming to burn it all down. Then came the surveillance footage. Yes, surveillance footage. Cam played a clip from a luxury Beverly Hills hotel. The timestamp, 2006. The footage showed 3 men cornering a young male artist outside a suite. No audio, but the body language was aggressive. One man waved a contract in his face. The artist tried to walk away. They blocked him, and then the artist was never seen again in the industry. His name had become an urban legend. Some said he quit. Some said he had mental issues. Others whispered he had odd. But now, fans were putting the puzzle pieces together, and they were horrified. YouTube exploded with hour-long breakdowns titled, "Where is TREVOR Chase? Camron just solved the mystery." The blacklisted. Artists the industry erased. This footage changes everything. But just when it seemed like this would be the final blow, Mase raised the stakes again. "There's a document we haven't released yet. A list, names, places, payments. Who attended what, who protected who got paid to stay silent. We're giving y'all 7 days." He paused. 7 days, Cam added. "Either they come forward or we do it for them." That line. It echoed across every screen like a death sentence. Because now, the industry had a countdown, and the people weren't just watching, they were waiting. The final moment of the episode, a slow fade to black with one line in red text. "This is no longer entertainment, this is a reckoning." And then the chilling sound of a ticking clock. After everything you've just heard, after the secrets, the manipulation, the erased careers, the buried voices, we need to hear from you. Speaking, do you believe this is just the tip of the iceberg? Speaking, which celebrities do you think knew all along and stayed silent? Speaking, have your favorite artists been hiding in plain sight, protecting the system for a check? Drop their names in the comments, don't hold back. Warning, and we're warning you now, next week it gets even darker. Mase and Camron aren't stopping here. They've got names, they've got receipts. And they're calling out the people who laughed while others suffered. If you thought part 1 and 2 were wild, part 3 will have you screaming. Speech balloon, we want to hear your theories. Speech balloon, we want to know who you think is on that list. Speech balloon, and we want you to tag the people who have stayed quiet for too long. Backhand index pointing down, flood the comments. Backhand index pointing down, firecracker, start the conversation. Fire, share this with someone who still thinks the industry is clean. Direct hit, because if we stay silent, we're part of the problem too. And before you scroll, eyes, you see that subscribe button? Hit it now. Because when Mase and Camron drop the next bomb, you'll want to be first in line. Bell turn on the notifications. Stay alert. Hourglass not done time is running out and the truth is almost here. The reckoning has begun.